You have said and compared this to the Civil Rights Bill in the context that it wasn't done in one fell swoop, that civil rights came to America legislatively over a period of time.
Sure.
So how are you going to do that in health care?
Well, this way, if we are immediately covering the children who have pre-existing conditions, in 4 years, we'll be covering their parents. All adults will get covered if they have pre-existing conditions. Immediately, we will get rid of rescissions. That means you cannot get rid of people because they get a catastrophic illness. That happens in 6 months. And then, you know, you look at what we did in civil rights. In 1964, when the Civil Rights Act was passed, it did not have voting in it.
Right.
It only outlawed discrimination in the private sector of employment. It was a year later before we got voting, and it was 3 years after that before we got housing. And so I believe that what we're doing here is laying a solid foundation which over time will have complete universal access to quality health care by all Americans.
The momentum has swung, you think, in understanding this health care reform?
I think a lot of that did take place. People began to cut through all the rhetoric, began to look at exactly what we were doing, and began to understand it. Remember, when the House passed its bill, we passed that bill last year, we passed a bill that had 63% approval by the people in this country. It was not until the Senate started putting in all of these special deals, and people got very upset that Nebraska amendment and a few other things that they didn't like. And that's when public support began to tumble for this bill. What we will be doing with this legislation is getting rid of all those special deals, fixing that, and then we're bringing in some of the other reforms that the president wanted to see us do to contain costs. And that's why you see this great number coming from the Congressional Budget Office that everybody is so happy about.
What's the toughest argument you have to overcome within your own caucus?
The toughest one right now is getting all of our anti-abortion people comfortable with the Senate language. And we're making a lot of headway with that because Congressman Giddy from Michigan and Congressman Oberstar from Minnesota, two of the very pro-life Democrats in our caucus, said to us that they have read this. They are now very comfortable that what the Senate language does is maintain the Hyde Amendment that will not allow for abortions being paid for by federal funds. They are comfortable that that's the case.
You have said, I think, over the weekend, you thought that Bert Stupak would, in the end, vote for the bill.
Well, I thought he might get comfortable with the language and could, in fact, vote for the bill. I'm not sure that he will. Bart Stupak is one of my best friends up here. We spent a lot of time together on the floor and off, and I know how strongly he feels about this issue. I really would love to see him get to a place where he could support this, but I would understand it if he did not.
But for those who think like he does, what do you have to say to get him there?
Well, we continue to work with them. We continue to ask them to listen to the nuns, listen to the hospital, Catholic hospital administrators, listen to the legal authorities on this, and we just keep working it. And who knows, there may be a tweak or two that can take place in the manager's amendment that they will be comfortable voting for it. So there's still time to get them comfortable.
The vote will take place when?
The vote, I think, will take place sometimes after 2 o'clock on Sunday. Remember, we promised the American people that we would not ask any member of the House to vote for this until there's 72 hours of posting.
Right.
We post the bill a little bit after 2 o'clock today, and so we won't be voting for it until a little bit after 2 o'clock on Sunday.
And then what happens?
And then what we will be doing in the House, we will be taking the Senate bill and the fixers, those two bills and laying them together, and we will vote on them at one time. And then those things will leave the House with the fixes going to the Senate and the Senate bill going to the President, and then we will see what happens in the Senate with the so-called fixers.
All right. Congressman Clyburn, it's always great to have you on the show. Thank you very much, and we will talk to you again soon.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
Jim Clyburn from South Carolina. Back in a moment.